you don't have Potter saying on the stand or on that body cam footage, I had no choice but to open fire. You hear her saying this was a complete mistake. I never wanted to do this. It's her defense counsel is saying she's justified whether or not she knows it or not. And I'm curious, would that have been two different cases here as we try to understand her actions that day?
It certainly would have changed the parameters of this case. It would have made it very different. It would have made the testimony very different. But, I think that she probably would have had a losing chance. While there was some kind of degree of imminent threat, right? There was a fight there. It is plausible that he could have been drug along. Really, what was her state of mind when she shot that gun? You heard her say taser, taser, taser. So clearly didn't think that she needed to deploy lethal force, right? And that alone probably would have killed her defense. The best thing that's going for her now is that every other officer is the one who's saying, you know what, even though she deployed lethal force, we think that it's appropriate. And that is actually extremely beneficial standing where she's standing. She has other officers who are per se experts, and I know that was a little bit of a conundrum in this case, saying that, you know what, we stand behind the shot. So I think that had she framed it as her absolute defense, I think she probably would have had a downhill battle.
Matthew, I want to ask you this point. This can get a bit complicated, but it's important nonetheless. Let's say we get a guilty verdict today. Let's say she's found guilty of both charges. The question becomes, what could she face? Now, I know this gets a bit complicated with the Minnesota sentencing guidelines, but my understanding is she's someone who doesn't have a criminal record. And when you look at the range, she might get somewhere between 8 years, a little over 8 years. But then my understanding is the defendant in this case would only serve 2/3 of that. On top of that, the judge also can consider other factors to kind of enhance that sentence, and maybe she would get more time in prison. Walk me through, if she's convicted, what she could likely face, because is this one of those egregious cases where a judge would say, I might go beyond the presumptive guidelines here?
Yeah, it took the words right out of my mouth. Essentially, it's the level of aggression, it's the level of egregiousness or unreasonableness that is deployed, and that's what's punishable in a criminal system, right? It's deterring, bad conduct. It's that punitiveness, and here we're really, operating in a category of recklessness. And the question is always whether it's so reckless that it's criminal, right? How culpable is she? And so seeing a lesser sentence and with good time, with good behavior, seeing her even come off a little bit shorter may not be unusual. Actually, it could be totally on point for a defendant like this.